Amina's life began like a dream many women hope for: a loving family, simple joys, and a marriage that promised happiness. When she married Juma, he seemed kind and caring. In the beginning, he was gentle with her, always smiling, helping around the house, and making Amina feel special. She believed she had found a partner she could trust and build her future with. But slowly, things started to change. The warmth in Juma's eyes began to fade, replaced by harsh words and cold silence. The kindness that once made Amina feel safe turned into controlling behavior. At first, the signs were small: a sharp tone here, a frustrated glance there. Amina would brush it off, thinking maybe he was just tired or stressed. But then came the moments when his anger would flare suddenly, and the words he used began to hurt deeper than any physical pain. He would blame her for things she didn't do and isolate her from friends and family. The emotional bruises started to form, invisible but heavy on her heart. Sometimes, a hand raised slightly, a shove in passing, small enough to hide, but enough to leave marks on her skin. Amina felt trapped in a world where love had turned to fear. She hid her pain behind forced smiles, afraid that anyone who saw her truth would judge her or blame her. Her heart ached every day, but she kept hoping things would go back to how they were in the beginning. The loneliness was crushing, and the fear of what Juma might do next grew stronger. This was the dark beginning of Amina's silent suffering, a journey many women face in silence, carrying wounds no one can see. After the kindness in the beginning, Amina's life slowly became lonely and frightening. Juma's controlling nature grew stronger, and he made sure she stayed away from her friends and family. Every time she tried to talk to someone about her pain, she felt a heavy fear in her heart. What if no one believed her? What if they blamed her for the problems? The fear of speaking out trapped her in silence like a cage she couldn't escape. Amina's family and society didn't make things easier. They often told her to be patient, to keep her marriage together no matter what. "It's your duty as a wife," they said. "Don't shame the family." These words felt like a chain around her spirit, forcing her to hide her bruises and tears. The pressure to keep quiet was stronger than her desire to seek help. Even when her body showed the signs of abuse, the bruises on her arms, the marks on her face, she covered them with long sleeves and scarves, afraid someone would ask questions she couldn't answer. Inside, the pain was not just physical, but deeper, in her mind and soul. The emotional wounds from Juma's harsh words and cold silences made her feel small and worthless. She started to doubt herself, wondering if she really deserved better. Each day was a battle between fear and hope, but the fear often won. The anxiety of what Juma might do next kept her awake at night. She felt isolated, like she was alone in the world, even though she was surrounded by people. Amina's silence was not because she wanted to hide, but because the world around her made it unsafe to speak. The psychological trauma was heavy. Her heart carried scars that no one could see, and her mind was filled with confusion and despair. Every bruise on her skin was a reminder of her trapped reality, but the invisible wounds inside were even harder to bear. This isolation and fear shaped her days, making her life a lonely struggle that many women silently endure. Just when Amina felt like she was drowning in darkness and loneliness, a small light appeared in her life. Zola. Zola was a strong, fearless woman who fought for the rights of women like Amina. She was an activist who believed that every woman deserved to live free from fear and pain. Zola's voice was loud and clear, and she never stopped speaking out against violence and injustice. When Amina first heard about Zola through a quiet word from a neighbor, she felt a spark of hope deep inside her heart. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. Zola organized secret meetings for women suffering in silence, where they could share their stories without fear of judgment or punishment. At first, Amina was scared to attend. She worried about what Juma would do if he found out, but the thought of being alone forever was even scarier. So, she gathered courage and began sneaking out to these meetings. The places were simple, a small room in a community center or someone's home, but for Amina, they felt like a safe haven. Here, she met women who understood her pain because they had lived it too. Their stories, their courage, made her feel less broken. At those meetings, Zola spoke with passion and kindness. She taught Amina about her rights, about strength that comes from within, and about the power of standing up. Amina listened carefully, soaking in every word like water in a desert. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen and heard. Zola didn't just offer advice, she gave hope. Hope that life could change, that pain didn't have to be forever. These moments became Amina's secret treasure. She carried the warmth of those meetings back home, like a small flame lighting up her darkest nights. Every story she heard, every encouraging word, built her courage bit by bit. It wasn't an easy path, but Zola's presence made Amina believe that a better future was possible. That hope, fragile yet powerful, started to grow inside her. The beginning of a journey from being a silent victim to becoming a brave fighter. After many months of pain and fear, something inside Amina began to change. The hope she found in Zola's meetings grew stronger, and slowly she made a decision. She would no longer stay silent. She wanted to break free from the chains that held her captive. But this decision was not easy. It was filled with fear, doubt, and so many emotions pulling her in different directions. She worried about what Juma might do if he found out. She feared being alone without any support. Yet, the pain of staying was heavier than the fear of leaving. Amina knew that to fight back, she needed proof, something solid to show that she was not just speaking out of anger or lies. So, with trembling hands, she started documenting everything, every bruise, every hurtful word, every moment of abuse. She kept a secret record. She took pictures when she could, and wrote down dates and details in a small notebook hidden beneath her bed. This was her silent rebellion, her way of telling the world she was ready to stand up. Collecting this evidence was risky. Juma's anger could explode if he ever found out, but Amina was becoming stronger with every step. The fear was still there, but it was slowly replaced by determination. She began to believe in herself, that she deserved respect and safety. With Zola's support, Amina learned how to prepare for what lay ahead. She practiced speaking her truth quietly at first, then louder, gaining confidence day by day. The journey to break free was painful. Sometimes, tears came easily, and nights were filled with doubt. But each struggle made Amina more resilient. She was no longer just a woman hiding her pain. She was a fighter, gathering strength. Every small victory, every moment of courage, brought her closer to freedom. Amina's decision to change her life wasn't just about escaping abuse. It was about reclaiming her identity and her future. This was the moment when she chose to fight back, not just for herself, but for every woman who deserved to be free. The night Amina escaped was the longest and scariest night of her life. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. She had planned every little detail in silence, with Zola's help. A small bag with her documents, her notebook full of proof, and a few clothes, all hidden for weeks. Juma had gone out that evening, and Amina knew this was her only chance. With shaking hands and teary eyes, she stepped out of the house that had once promised love, but gave her only fear. She didn't look back. The safe house was hidden in a quiet neighborhood, known only to women like her and the people who protected them. When Amina arrived, she felt like she was dreaming. A kind woman opened the door, smiled softly and said, "You're safe now." Those words broke something inside Amina, not in a bad way, but in a way that made her cry harder than ever before. It was the first time in years she felt like someone cared. Her first day at the safe house was overwhelming. Everything felt strange. The soft bed, the calm voices, the warmth. She wasn't used to kindness anymore. The other women there had their own stories, their own wounds. They welcomed her with open arms. No judgment, just quiet understanding. It felt like a family she never knew she needed. But even in this safe space, the struggle didn't end. Amina had nightmares. Loud noises made her flinch. She cried without knowing why. Trusting people again was hard. She still felt like Juma might show up at any moment. But every day, she woke up and chose to keep going. She joined therapy sessions, shared her story in small pieces, and slowly started healing. The safe house gave her not just a roof, but a chance to start over. The women there held her hand through the pain, and the staff guided her with patience. With each passing day, Amina's spirit began to rebuild. She was no longer a victim hiding in fear. She was becoming a fighter, not with fists, but with courage, truth, and the strength she didn't know she had. Hope had finally returned, and this time, it was here to stay. At the safe house, Amina's healing didn't stop with safety. It was just the beginning. For the first time in her life, she started learning about her rights as a woman. as a human being. The shelter offered classes and training on women's rights, self-respect, legal help, and emotional strength. At first, Amina felt unsure. She had lived so long being told she was nothing. It was hard to believe she had the right to speak, to dream, to live freely. But little by little, the lessons began to change her. She learned about laws that protected women like her. She discovered she was not alone. Thousands of women had faced the same pain and had risen from it. The trainers spoke kindly, with strength in their voices, and looked at her not with pity, but with belief. For the first time, Amina saw herself not as weak, but as someone who survived and could grow stronger. With encouragement, Amina joined a small public speaking group at the center. Her hands would shake when she stood to speak, her voice trembling. But when she looked around and saw the faces of women nodding, crying, listening, she knew her story mattered. Each time she told her story, a piece of the pain left her body, and in its place came courage. One day, she stood in front of a full room, community leaders, women, young girls, and shared everything. Her journey, her escape, her healing. The silence in the room was powerful, and when she finished, the applause felt like a warm hug. Amina had found her voice, and she wasn't afraid to use it anymore. Her confidence grew with every session, every event, every woman she inspired. The girl who once hid behind bruises and silence was now a woman who spoke with strength and pride. She smiled more, walked taller, and helped others in the shelter feel the same hope she once needed. Education didn't just teach Amina facts, it gave her back her identity. Her healing was not just physical or emotional, but spiritual. She was rebuilding herself piece by piece into someone powerful, and for the first time, she believed, truly believed, that she deserved this new life. Just when Amina started to feel strong, Juma's shadow returned. He had found out she had left and filed a case to get her back, saying lies about her character and blaming her for everything. He even sent threats through others, harsh words meant to scare her into silence. But Amina was not the same woman anymore. She was scared, yes, but she was also ready to fight. She knew the truth, and this time she had proof, a voice, and people who believed in her. The legal battle was not easy. The courtroom was cold, full of strangers, and Amina had to stand in front of everyone and speak her truth while Juma sat just meters away, his eyes full of anger and control. Her heart would pound every time she entered the court. Sometimes she cried silently in the bathroom before stepping in, but she always came back, stronger each time. NGOs and women's rights groups stood by her side. Zola helped her find a lawyer who truly cared. The legal team helped her prepare her statements, showed her how to stay calm, and reminded her of her courage when she wanted to give up. They brought the evidence she had collected. They stood with her during every hearing, and they made sure she never felt alone. Juma tried everything, twisting the story, shouting in court, bringing false witnesses, but Amina held her ground. She told the judge about the years of pain, the bruises, the emotional scars. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. Sometimes the courtroom was silent, sometimes tense, and sometimes filled with gasps when the truth hit hard. There were good days when the judge believed her words, and there were bad days when doubts were raised and fear came rushing back. But through every high and low, Amina kept walking forward. She remembered the girl who once cried alone in the dark, and she promised herself to never go back to that life. This legal fight was not just for her freedom, it was for her dignity, her future. By standing in that courtroom, Amina wasn't just facing Juma, she was proving to the world and to herself that she was no longer a victim. She was a warrior. After the court case ended and Amina finally felt free, something inside her told her this couldn't be the end of her story. She knew too many women were still trapped in the same silence she once lived in. She couldn't just walk away, so she decided to speak louder, to stand taller, and to become the voice for those who couldn't speak yet. Amina's journey from survivor to leader had begun. With Zola's help, Amina joined women's rights organizations full-time. She started attending rallies, standing on stages with a mic in her hand, telling the world what she had been through and why things needed to change. Her honesty touched hearts. People cried when they heard her story, not out of pity, but out of respect for her strength. Slowly, news reporters and local media started noticing her. She gave interviews on TV, in newspapers, and even on social media. Her name began to spread, and so did her message. No woman deserves to live in fear. At first, Amina was nervous in front of cameras, but the more she spoke, the more confident she became. She talked about her past, her escape, her healing, and most importantly, her hope. Women from different towns began reaching out saying, "Your story gave me courage," or "Because of you, I spoke out for the first time." Those words became her fuel. She wasn't just sharing her pain, she was lighting the path for others. Amina also helped build support groups, shelters, and awareness campaigns. She trained young girls about self-respect and legal rights. At rallies, she didn't just speak, she led. She marched with banners in her hands and fire in her heart. Her presence became powerful, her voice impossible to ignore. She had become more than just a survivor. She was now a leader, a symbol of what happens when pain turns into power. Her life was no longer about the fear Juma once forced on her. Now, it was about hope, strength, and change. Amina inspired not just women but entire communities. And as she stood in front of crowds with courage shining in her eyes, she showed the world what true transformation looks like. Amina's voice had grown far beyond her town. What started as her personal fight soon turned into a movement. She realized that to protect more women, the laws needed to change. So she stepped into a new world, the world of policy and government, where real change could be made. It wasn't easy. The language of laws was confusing, and the meetings were full of people who didn't always take her seriously at first. But Amina didn't give up. She kept showing up, again and again, with her story, her truth, and the voices of hundreds of women behind her. She worked closely with women's rights lawyers and NGOs to push for stronger laws against domestic violence. Together, they fought for quicker police action, better protection for victims, and harsher punishment for abusers. Amina gave powerful speeches in front of government officials, demanding that women's safety should never be ignored. Her bravery made it harder for leaders to stay silent. They began to listen, and soon, small changes started to happen. Emergency helplines, shelter support funding, awareness in schools, and better legal access for women in danger. Amina was also invited to speak at international events. Her story reached organizations in other countries, and many began supporting her mission. She partnered with global women's rights groups to create cross-border campaigns and bring attention to how abuse is often hidden behind closed doors. Her face appeared in documentaries, awareness posters, and educational videos. Wherever she spoke, she reminded the world, this is not just my story, it's the story of millions. Back home, Amina led large-scale awareness campaigns in villages and cities. She organized marches, community talks, and youth programs. People who once ignored the issue were now openly talking about it. Men joined the conversation, young girls asked questions, and families began teaching their daughters about strength and respect. The change was slow, but real. Amina's fight had turned into a wave that touched every corner of society, in laws, schools, homes, and hearts. Her efforts made sure that no woman would feel as alone as she once did. Through pain, she created purpose. Through her voice, she gave power to many. Amina was no longer just a symbol of survival. She was a force that changed the system itself. Amina's journey began in silence, in a home filled with pain, fear, and broken dreams. She was once a young woman who believed love meant sacrifice, even when it hurt. But slowly, through every tear, every scar, and every whispered cry for help, she found her voice. From surviving abuse to standing in court, from speaking on village streets to meeting world leaders, Amina transformed her pain into power. Her story is not just about escaping darkness, it's about creating light for others. She showed the world that no matter how deep the wounds, healing is possible. She proved that even one broken voice, when it refuses to stay quiet, can shake systems, change laws, and rebuild communities. Amina's courage became her legacy, and her legacy became a lifeline for countless women who once felt invisible. Her journey reminds us that bravery doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a whisper that says, "I will try again tomorrow." But Amina's story is not just hers. It belongs to every woman still waiting to be heard. It belongs to daughters, sisters, mothers who suffer in silence, hoping for a way out. And now, it belongs to you, the listener, the viewer, the one reading these words. You can be part of this change. Support women's shelters. Speak up when you see abuse. Educate your sons and daughters. Believe survivors. Donate, volunteer, share stories. Help build a world where women don't have to be brave just to be safe. Because Amina's fight was never just for herself, it was for all of us. And her legacy will live on every time someone chooses courage over silence, justice over fear, and love over control. Let's carry her story forward, with hope, with action, and with the promise of a better tomorrow.